Hi, good day. Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to talk about what is Dissociative Identity Disorder. This is a re-record, and we have re-recorded many times because we want as much quality as we can for this video. So, as an introduction, I'm Sage. I'm the primary protector of my system. I'm also a full gatekeeper, specifically fronting gatekeeper and a memory gatekeeper. So I'm able to control who comes to the front, who stays away from the front, and I'm able to control memories, division of memories between alters. I'm also a system overseer. I oversee the operations of the entire system. I have they them pronouns, and I'm a non-human alter. I'm literally just a ray of light. I'm also ageless. So my system is called the Dark Alice system, and we are a system of about 50 alters, of about 20 unidentified and 30 identified. About 10 of us are active, and about 5 are regular alters, regular fronters rather. So this video is about sharing the basics of DID. It's actually going to be a really long video. This is probably just going to be part 1. Because we have a content page of about 20 chapters, and I think in this video I can only complete about 10, hopefully. Yeah, and why we chose to do this video is because even to this day, this year, 2025, there are a lot of people who are not aware of what DID is or even its existence. And that is shocking because people are aware of what autism is or what an autistic person is, or they may have heard of it, but not so much for DID. Whereas the prevalence rate for autism, according to the DSM-5, is 1% of the population, whereas the prevalence rate for DID, as per the DSM-5, is 1.5%. So just take a moment to think. DID is slightly more common than autism, based on the official data. Why is DID not so well known? Because we need more awareness. We need to stop the stigma. So what is DID? The way we describe DID in our own words would be, the whole personality, the singular person. Our personality is being split into different parts due to, in our belief, trauma. So we are a traumagenic system. And all of these parts of us, we call them alters. Each alter have their own likes and dislikes, their own triggers, their own behavioral patterns, their own name and age, blah blah blah. And across these alters and parts, there may or may not be amnesia between them, amnesia walls due to the condition called DID. So if I were to describe how it's like to have DID, it feels like teleportation. It's like, I blink of an eye and I find myself somewhere else. I do not know why I'm there. And I do not know what happened for the past X number of hours, because when I look at my watch, it would be showing a much more different time, sometimes days. You skip days. And that is because of the amnesia world. So that is one example of how it's like to live with DID. And on top of that, you have instances where people accuse you of doing something and you don't remember any of it because probably another alter did it. And you don't have that conscious memory of doing that. Alright, so on to the next point. So next, signs and symptoms of DID. I'm just gonna skim through all the points because the last time I recorded it, I expanded on each point, even just a bit, and eventually the video blown up to like 30 minutes and I'm not even halfway through. So let's start. Amnesia / time lapse. change of personality traits, depersonalization, derealization, not in control of your speech or movements, suddenly feeling younger or older, feeling like the body is not yours, gender dysphoria, voice changes, likes, dislikes, interest changes, and sometimes opposing one another, hearing voices, but not from the external world, like not around you, but from the inside of the head, and that's a distinction between DID and schizophrenia. Based on my limited understanding of schizophrenia, I could be wrong. They hear voices from the outside, and it seems like to them it's from the external environment, and it seems real to them. But for us, people with DID, we hear the voices inside, and you can actually make conversation with those voices. So next, the official diagnostic criteria for DID. Criterion A, disruption of identity characterized by two or more distinct personality states, which may be described in some cultures as an experience of possession. The disruption of an identity involves marked discontinuity in sense of self and sense of agency, accompanied by related alteration in affect, behavior, consciousness, memory, perception, cognition, and or sensory motor functioning. These signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. Criterion B, recurrent gaps in the recall of everyday events, important personal information, and or traumatic events that are inconsistent with ordinary forgetting. Criterion C, the symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The disturbance is not, Criterion D, the disturbance is not a normal part of a broadly accepted cultural or religious practice. Lastly, Criterion E, the symptoms are not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance. For example, blackouts or chaotic behavior during alcohol intoxication, or another medical condition. So, if you're looking to get diagnosed or get checked for DID, based on the DSM-5, the SCID-D is the gold standard, SCID-D. And look for someone who is ISSTD certified. ISSTD stands for the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation. Over there, you could filter by a location, say if you're from the States. I understand people from the States, you need a therapist or a mental health professional in your area, and that is like a rule or law or something. So look up ISSTD website, and that is for you to be sure that your mental health professional actually knows what they're doing. So next, identities of alters. It varies across alters. So we have they might have different names, gender, age, human form or non-human form. In my case, I'm a non-human form. I'm just a ray of light in my system. System roles may be different across different alters. Ethnicity and race may be different. Religion might be different even, and that might cause some problems. So for system roles, we have hosts, protectors, persecutors, gatekeepers, such as fronting gatekeepers, memory gatekeepers, system overseers, littles or small. Some systems like calling themselves, some systems like calling their littles smalls. It's just a terminology thing, up to their preference. Trauma holders, the alters that hold trauma. And then if you want to go a bit more clinical, ANP and EP. ANP stands for apparently normal part, and EP stands for emotional part. Usually it's the EP that holds trauma. So there are various types of switches. There are two different sets of two ways of categorizing that. Confusing, let me get to it. So you could categorize them based on slow switches and fast switches. Slow switching is pretty annoying to a lot of systems, as far as I could see. It's how we relate to that is like, having constipation and you're on a toilet bowl doing a business and you're trying to get it out, but it's literally not coming out until like maybe 1 or 2 hours later. It's agonizing, horrific. Fast switches are less agonizing because it happens really quickly. It may be disorientating, but it's fast, it's over quickly. So fast switches are usually triggered by, a trigger. Say, if I want to bring so and so to the front, I will play their favorite song, and it will pull them to the front pretty quickly. And it could also, because that's a positive trigger. There are also negative triggers. So, say something bad happens, in the real world, and I, as a primary protector, I will fast switch to the front and protect my system, and that's a fast switch. The other 2 ways to, categorize switching will be covert switches and overt switches. Covert, meaning not so obvious, and overt meaning, you get to see a lot of symptoms. It really depends on where and how the system is doing, and in their progress of developing themselves better as a system. By that I mean their road to recovery. I don't mean cure, I mean recovery. It means recovery from, being disorganized or, ashamed of themselves, blah blah blah. That's what I mean by recovery. Symptoms during a switch. So, for us, when we switch, we feel like, shivers, we have tremors, we feel like goosebumps everywhere, and our vision kind of just blends in and mixes. And that's the internal symptoms, that's what we see and feel. For other people, if you're the external viewer, you might suddenly see like a switch of body language, the way they're speaking, pitch of the voice. For some systems, different authors speak differently. Maybe a change of accent, because, that an author might, have a different ethnicity or race, and they might sound different. Basically, something would change, you will notice, and usually those are more noticeable in fast switches. And even more obvious would be, from external point of view, the person just stares at you and go like, who are you? I've never seen you before, why am I here? And that's, when you talk about amnesia barriers, the person that just switched to the front does not know you, does not know why they are there, and yeah, literally that's the amnesia barrier. So I'd like to educate you guys on how to react to a switch. When a system switches in front of you, give them time. Back to the, toilet example. I'm so sorry for bringing up this example. If somebody is doing number 2 in the toilet, you let them do the business, right? Give them some peace. Of course, that's not the toilet in front of you. It's probably in a public place, but give them time. Switches can, fast switches can take between a split second to, like, I would say give it a few minutes. But even after the switch, they might need some time to, ground themselves, figure what the hell is happening, because they might not be out for a very long time. And after they're ready to speak to you, interact with you, you go like, hi, who is this? What's your name? Stuff like that. You just treat it as if a new person have just walked into the room. Okay, so in this segment we'll talk about etiquette. Etiquette when interacting with a system. So beware of different alters' preferences with touch. Just because an alter that you know likes to be touched doesn't mean the other alter that is in their system likes to be touched. It could be traumatizing to them, you never know. It could be a trauma holder. It could be somebody that have faced, some kind of physical assault. So, respect that. And next point, switches. I've just explained in the previous segment how to react to a switch. So, respect the space, be patient with them when they're switching. Next is about triggering another alter. So if you know that system, friend or partner or somebody that you know is a system, do not deliberately trigger another alter out unless you're given explicit permission to do so. Because otherwise, by deliberately triggering another alter, it's like you're yanking a part of them out of their head without their say-so, without their consent, and the rest of the brain do not know what you're going to do with it. It's non-consensual, don't do that. And by triggering another alter, you might accidentally trigger the wrong alter, and they might be in fight or flight mode, you never know. There might be an alter that has been dormant for many years, and the last thing that they remember is being, assaulted or something. So unless you have been given explicit permission, do not deliberately trigger another alter. The next point is pretty basic. Every alter has their own name. It's okay not to have a name because there are many alters even within our system that is unnamed, no name, but hold space for them. If they have a preferred name, call them by their preferred name. And definitely their preferred pronouns as well, because different alters may have different gender or pronouns. And regarding the next point is regarding memory. So because we have DID, we don't want people who know that we have DID to have the unreasonable expectation that we will always remember what happened the last time we met. Because if it's a different alter that's speaking to you, that different alter may not hold the memories of the last time we hung out or the last time we had a call. And even if the same alter, sometimes memories between alters could jump from one alter to another alter or just disappear somewhere in the headspace, you never know. So be patient, be kind to us. Last point on etiquette, boundaries. So there are boundaries, interpersonal boundaries, between human beings, that's a healthy thing. For the entire system, which means the whole, human body. And there are also there may be different boundaries between each alter. Respect them. Because every alter, is their own alter. They have their own things that they're okay with and not okay with. Right, next segment, traumagenic versus endogenic systems. Traumagenic systems are defined by systems who have formed from severe childhood trauma, whereas endogenic systems are systems who are formed not from trauma. We personally believe in traumagenic the traumagenic theory basically, but just because we believe in traumagenic theory does not mean we disregard endogenic systems, because with all due respect, in the DSM-5 there is no diagnostic criteria for having trauma to be diagnosed with DID, and we have to remain clinically correct about this. So we don't really understand the world of endogenic systems. However, we respect them and we welcome them. And yes, this is an official statement. There are other people as well. They are valid. Even if we don't understand it, even though we don't experience life like they do, except for being plural, but I mean I'm literally just meaning about traumagenic versus endogenic. We would still respect them. They deserve a place in the plural world. plural world. Sorry, words are getting hard. Right, so regarding traumagenic, so this reminds me to talk about the theory of structural dissociation. I'm gonna read off did-research.org. The theory of structural dissociation works off of the assumption that no one is born with an integrated personality. Instead, infants operate based off a loose collection of different ego states that handle their different needs, feeding attachment to a caregiver, exploring the world around them. Over time, these ego states naturally integrate into one coherent and cohesive personality, usually by the ages of 6 to 9. However, childhood trauma disrupts this process. Different ego states are left unable to merge with each other due to conflicting needs, traumatic memories, or learned action paths or responses to trauma. And that is the theory of structural dissociation. And okay, yeah, so a few more things. Traumagenic systems may also experience stuff like flashbacks, which means you're reliving the experience again as if it's real. And because we're traumagenic, we also have CPTSD symptoms, complex PTSD. And in interacting with the system, be careful with trauma. You know, it could really change the way we feel and the way we perceive things. And we may perceive there's a threat when there's no threat. Right, so internal communications. We do get questions on how do we communicate with one another since, you know, we are different parts. 3 ways: traditional notes / digital notes. Number 2, internal communication, voiced or unvoiced. And that by voiced I mean like internal voice, or unvoiced, which means I can put up a sign in my internal world, in my inner world, or headspace, like some would call it, and other authors can see it, you know, like a memo, an important memo. Third, we could speak out loud, and we usually do that when we are alone, you know, because we don't want to freak people out. And if we really do have to speak out loud to another author, because that's how they communicate, and we're in public, one really neat trick is to take your phone and hold it to your ear and, like, you know, pretend you're on a call talking to somebody, but you're actually talking to another author in your system. So for those of you guys who are systems who are watching this, if you would like to have, you know, a way to speak to each other in public without, you know, looking weird, you know, use the phone method. Right, so the last point I'm gonna talk about today, because this video is, you know, extending past 20 minutes. So this will be, you know, the last chapter of part 1 of what is DID. The inner world of systems. Some systems may have inner worlds. We don't really have much of an inner world. It's just, there's not a lot of things. I've heard of systems who have, you know, large islands, multiple islands, or they have an entire planet to themselves, or they might even have something similar to, like, you know, a solar system where every author occupies like one planet. You know, it literally can be anything. They build their own inner world, some of them, and it's a place where authors mentally go to when they're not fronting, when they're not at the front and executive control of the body. And when they front, they leave their inner world and come to the front and see the real world. And that's the definition of inner world. Another term is headspace. Alright, so we've come to the end of part 1 of what is DID. I would love to have the energy to continue all the way in a single video, but I don't think anybody's gonna click like an hour-long video. Not even ourselves. We see a 1-hour video and we wouldn't want to click it. So hence the decision to split this video into 2 parts. So I hope I've been helpful sharing all these things. If any questions, comments, clarifications, feel free to type in the comment section. And if you like the content we shared, please do subscribe, like our channel, a video, and enable notifications. And we'll see you around.